It's Friday here on the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter here with Brian Batko. We get you ready. We talk about, hey, are the Steelers still involving Justin Fields in this offense despite Russell Wilson taking the obvious starting job? We'll talk about that, get you our pick six, and get you ready for the weekend here on the North Shore Drive podcast. Let's get into it.
You are now listening to the North Shore Drive podcast, a show on all things Pittsburgh sports from the writers of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, hosted by Christopher Carter.
Hello, welcome to the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter here with Brian Batko, one of our great Steelers beat writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. As always, you can find the show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube. Like this video if you enjoy it, subscribe to the channel to get all of your Monday, Wednesday, Friday episodes of the North Shore Drive podcast, as well as all of our daily content that comes out from all of our sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, including Chip Tam and Football, which Brian Batko hosts every single Tuesday. And as always, this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. Whether you're injured in a car accident or hurt on the job, Edgar Snyder Associates has helped injury victims for over 40 years recover more than $2 billion on their behalf. If you or a loved one have been seriously injured in an accident, call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com for a free consultation. And remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. Brian, let's talk about this Steelers offense a little bit, because the quarterback situation, not as loud of a topic this week after Russell Wilson's leading of the offense last week. But there's still questions about if Justin Fields will be included a little bit. We've asked Mike Tomlin, we've asked Arthur Smith, we've asked Russell Wilson. Didn't get a chance to ask Justin Fields this week. He wasn't brought to the backdrop. What's your read on if they're still trying to find a way to include Justin Fields in either sub packages or other ways to use his talents?
I think that would make perfect sense given what we saw from him the first 6 games. I mean, really what we saw from him his first 3 seasons in the NFL. I mean, rushing for 1,000 yards his second year with the Bears. But, I mean, it's still something you want to see it in your own offense with a new team. And, I think he did show what he could do with his legs for sure, and earn some trust from Mike Tomlin and Arthur Smith when they got off to that 4-2 start. I don't know that it's going to be something they incorporate as soon as this Monday night against the Giants. I think you're still kind of in that seeing what Russell Wilson can unlock for you mode and letting him knock the rust off, get comfortable. But, assuming Russell Wilson goes out there, handles business against the Giants, which we'll preview more on Monday's show, Chris, because of the schedule, I think after the bye would be kind of the perfect time to have Arthur Smith and his staff sit down and say, okay, what's a viable way to get the most out of this 2-quarterback situation? Unless something goes awry here, we've got Russell Wilson, firmly in what's better than pole position. I guess he's in the car at this point, past the finish line. We've got him as our number 1 quarterback as we planned coming out of camp, but we also have this other guy who, just has so much ability to keep defenses on their toes. And, whether that's short yardage, whether that's red zone, goal to go. Russell Wilson statistically has been good in those scenarios, even last year with the Broncos, but Fields does provide another wrinkle for sure. And, that was probably his greatest strength through those first 6 games. The passing kind of went up and down, and, the command of the offense was up and down, but the ability to take what defenses were giving him on the ground was there consistently.
The Steelers were 4 out of 6 in the red zone, 2 out of 3 at goal to go situations when it came to scoring last week with Russell Wilson. I do think there's an advantage there that you could try to tap into with Justin Fields and his style of play, because
Mike Tomlin seems to keep entertaining it. What did he say on Tuesday? I'm not going to acknowledge the circumstance that you just acknowledged to I think it was our buddy Mike DeFabo. So he doesn't even want to say that Justin Fields isn't going to play at all. He wants to keep that top of mind for opposing defensive coordinators. This week it's Shane Bowen for the Giants, who knows Arthur Smith pretty well from their time together in Tennessee.
And who knows? Like, you might see a situation where Russell Wilson, like his decision making in short distances, maybe that is the difference maker because he could throw that fade to Darnell Washington or George Pickens really well, or he could just make the quick decision that finds the open guy. But certainly in short distances, sometimes just having that guy that can take off and force defense to say, hey, we have to leave an edge rusher or a linebacker staring at Justin Fields because he is a threat to just walk into the end zone every play. That's another factor that can open guys up naturally.
And the funny thing about that discussion to me is always like, yeah, that sounds good on paper, but I do wonder, hey, is there a concern with bringing in a guy cold off the bench? That's probably easier said than done because you still, I mean, the whole point of using a quarterback in that role is you still have the threat to throw it over the top if a defense completely sells out to stop you on a, designed run or something like that. But I mean, that's something that they would have to work through with Fields and determine their own level of comfort. With a wrinkle like that. Russell Wilson, and when I asked him about it on Thursday, if he's open to, ceding some snaps here and there in what would inevitably be a pretty high leverage play, or if he's one of those quarterbacks who's, no, I got to stay on the field. I don't want to lose my rhythm. I mean, he said he's basically open to whatever because Justin Fields, showed what he could do the early part of the season. He just wants to be out there with the guys and winning. So, he didn't shoot it down. I think that's probably a good sign, and it shows that everybody's on the same page here too, with just the messaging, I guess, right now from the top with Mike Tomlin. And there's probably something to be said for keeping a guy like Justin Fields, in the game plan to some extent, keeping him engaged. And yeah, I mean, Tomlin, going back to when he named Russell Wilson the starter, didn't want to take the idea of a sub package for Fields off the table. He wants to keep defenses guessing. It was Raheem Morris and company week 1 with the Falcons, and then we know what happened to all of that. Completely blew up, and it was Fields for the first 6 games. But yeah, I think it's going to be an intriguing storyline to monitor, not just this week, but for the rest of this season as the Wilson Fields dynamic plays out on the grass.
Certainly. I want to talk to you about the Steelers wide receiver situation. There's a lot of talk about them potentially going and getting another guy. Cooper Kupp was the name that he scored a touchdown for the Rams.
Yes,
how does that conversation impact there? We'll talk about that next after this next break here on the North Shore Drive podcast, the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. But first, want to remind you this show is brought to you by Edgar Snyder Associates. If you're injured in an accident, you're probably wondering what's next. For over 40 years, Edgar Snyder and Associates have helped injury victims answer that question, whether it's gathering evidence, collecting medical records, or dealing with the insurance companies. Edgar Snyder and Associates has helped over 75,000 people handle the what's next question. Call 1-800-94-EDGAR or visit www.edgarsnyder.com for your free consultation. Remember, there's never a fee unless they get money for you. We're back here in the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Chris Carter here with Brian Batko. And Brian, Wednesday was a different topic for the Steelers because yet again, another big name wide receiver was thrown into the trade rumor market, and that was Cooper Kupp. Well, he returned from his injury and played well on Thursday Night Football as the Rams pulled off an upset. They beat the Vikings and then their second loss in a row, and putting the Rams back into the NFC West conversation. Though they're just 3-4, NFC West has a lot of teams that are struggling as well. Cooper Kupp catching 5 passes on 8 targets for 51 yards and a touchdown. And after the game, Sean McVay saying this: "I'm really glad to have Cooper Kupp back with us, and I expect it to stay that way." So now it looks like this might be a situation where maybe Cooper Kupp isn't on the trade block as many people had been rumoring. And I know there's a lot of Steelers fans that are like, another one. Why can't we get our guy? Because they were so mad about Brandon Ayuk, Devontae Adams. Some people thought they should have been in on Amari Cooper. That's ridiculous. And now Cooper Kupp looks like it might be another one that didn't go their way. But Brian, you and I have talked about.
Did you say DeAndre Hopkins?
I forgot about DeAndre Hopkins, and that was another one. And you look at the trade value of DeAndre Hopkins. That one might be the one that you can say, like, okay, what didn't happen here to allow that to happen for the Steelers?
Did you say Jahan Dotson?
Jahan Dotson.
I'm just seeing how far down the list we can go.
Yeah, but Jahan
receiving trade targets.
Yeah, but here's my thing here, Brian, is that the Steelers have been in the trade conversations, but I think it's pretty clear they're not going to be giving up reasonable draft capital for just a bigger star. I think they were going to want someone who can contribute in the way that they want, but without giving up the big pick to do so. Because, I mean, let's face it, a second round pick this past year was Zach Frazier. And even though he's hurt right now, he's played pretty well. And they need to get younger in a lot of places. They need to start, rebuilding the nucleus for the future while they're also giving them talent right now. And you could get a lot of really good receivers in the second round, George Pickens being one of them right now. What's your readout on how the Steelers have handled this trade market, and if there even will be a move before the November 5th deadline?
Once again, we're seeing Omar Khan be patient. I think the Brandon Ayuk saga was one that, I've said this before. I feel like he almost was too patient and not patient enough at the same time. I mean, it ended up falling through, and that kind of just left them with a fairly weak receiving core on paper going into the season. But I mean, there's a reason why you build your team through the draft, through free agency first, and you have to believe in your personnel decisions that you made back then before things changed with the trade market and different receivers became available. So I mean, I think they did come into the season with some level of confidence, or at least comfort, with Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin, Roman Wilson, Scotty Miller. The Roman Wilson thing is going sideways a little bit. That could change the calculus. I still think there's more to get out of Calvin Austin, but he's never really going to be an every snap kind of guy, I don't think, at his size in the NFL. So, I wouldn't blame Omar for going out there and making a move, but he's just never going to do it for bad value, I don't think. I mean, that's what we've seen from him to this point in his GMing tenure with the Steelers. I mean, there's just not going to be many, if any, situations where you walk away feeling like Omar Khan got fleeced. And maybe you did think that with the Deontay Johnson trade, but I mean, look what Dante Jackson's provided for the Steelers thus far. And I mean, again, we saw last week, well, you probably didn't see it because it's the Carolina Panthers and they're the most irrelevant team in the NFL right now. But Deontay Johnson was chirping his quarterback again last week after a rough showing. And I know the guy's frustrated. I know he's not a bad guy, but I just think
this. But that's not what the Steelers wanted to run their team.
I was just gonna say, I think this was the type of personality that they weren't sure they could win with at this stage. So he might even be on the move. But in case you missed it, there is an NFL bylaw that he can't be traded back to the Steelers, even if you thought that was something they would entertain, which I did not. So
no.
I mean, just here to go back to the Kupp speculation from earlier in the week. This is why I never get too over my skis with saying this is going to happen. Omar is going to get it. Like, there's so many factors. There's 30 other teams that could be interested. There's the Rams going out and beating the Vikings on Thursday Night Football. And now why wouldn't you just say, hey, we're 3-4. He looks healthy. Let's just go try to win the NFC West. I mean, there's just a lot of different, ways things can play out. And if they'd have been 2-5, maybe his value even goes down a little bit because they have less leverage, but now they have probably even more leverage. So hard to say who was leaking what there out of LA. Maybe they're just putting out some feelers for a GM to make an outlandish offer for a 31-year-old coming off some injuries, but Omar Khan ain't going to be that guy.
No, certainly. I mean, they also, I think the Steelers also dodged some bullets this year. Brandon Ayuk, the guy that everyone thought they should trade for a second round or a first round pick and pay ridiculous money to, is out for the season with an ACL injury. Devontae Adams is yelling at the Jets about their locker room environment and things like that. They're 2-5, and they just shut down Devontae Adams over in New York. And certainly, there's other places where you look at like Jahan Dotson, you look at DeAndre Hopkins. If Hopkins recovers from his knee injury and plays well for the Chiefs, that's going to be a thorn in the Steelers' side later this season when they play the Chiefs, and that could be. But I do wonder if if Omar Khan has something in his back pocket, if he has a contingency plan for if they get to the trade deadline, or if they're saying, you know what, Russell Wilson is going to open up more parts of this offense. You're going to get to know Calvin Austin, Darnell Washington, Pat Freiermuth, and other guys in this passing offense a bit more, and enough so that you're going to say, hey, who needs a wide receiver too? But somehow, Brian, I don't think that will shut Steelers fans up no matter how well this offense plays before the trade deadline.
Omar probably wants to, be patient, take it up to the deadline, hope some team gets desperate and says, all right, well, we're running out of time. There's nobody really left here as buyers, so we want to unload this guy who's not going to be part of the future for us, and we ain't going anywhere. this season. So maybe that's then when he pulls one off. But yeah, we'll see what happens. You got another week, another opportunity here against the Giants to see what this offense is looking like and how badly you need to infuse a little bit more talent for the stretch run.
Absolutely. We come back. We'll give our pick six for the weekend, giving you the six games you need to watch on Sunday, heading into Monday Night Football, and where we think those will go. But first, before we do any of that, I want to remind you this show is also brought to you by Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. They are mesothelioma and asbestos lawyers with over 85 years of experience. Call them today for a free consultation. That's Savinas, Kane, and Gallucci. We're also brought to you by Moon Township Honda. Visit them at 5802 University Boulevard in Moon Township, PA, or go to their website, moonhonda.com, to get your new Honda vehicle. Here's a message from our friends at Moon Township Honda.
To build the Honda CR-V Hybrid, we took everything you love about the CR-V and kicked it up a notch with greater power for a CR-V unlike any before. Adventure confidently with Honda, Car and Driver's most awarded brand in 10 Best history, the CR-V and CR-V Hybrid. Part of the Honda line of rugged vehicles. Visit your local Honda dealer where new vehicles are arriving daily. Buy online or reserve from select Honda dealers.
Back here at the North Shore Drive podcast of the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette, Chris Carter, Brian Batko. Brian, let's take a step back from the Steelers and look around the NFL. Steelers fans get to sit back a little cozy at 5-2 and watch how the weekend plays out. Let's get into 6 games that I think they'll be interested in seeing, if not just for future opponents and past opponents, just for the sake of some good football. I think one of the more underrated matchups this weekend is an AFC North game. That's the Eagles at the Bengals. The Bengals have rebounded. They're 3-4. They've been able to win 3-3 straight. But some people are wondering, hey, have they beaten nobodies? They've beaten the Giants, the Panthers, and a hapless Browns team. While the Eagles, they're 4-2, but I don't think they've hit their stride either. But in this game right now, Vegas has the Bengals as 2.5-point favorites. In Cincinnati. I'm rolling with Philly here. But should people be more beware of what Joe Burrow can do to this Eagles team?
They should be, but I'm actually going to agree with you on this one, Chris. I like the vibes right now going on with the Eagles. Just that, I mean, longtime viewers know I usually pick these games on the vibes. I'm a big vibe check guy, and I love to see Nick Sirianni on the bench with Saquon Barkley last week as they're just kicking the Giants' doors in, and he's like, hey, do you want to go out here and get your career high in yardage against your former team that very controversially let you walk in free agency? And he's like, nah, man, let the young guys play. I'm good. We're cool. Team game. So I like what's going on right now with the Eagles. Fly, Eagles, fly. Go Birds. All that stuff. I'll take them winning this one.
Certainly. Back when the season started, this matchup looked a lot more enticing. But with what's gone on in Cleveland, Deshaun Watson out for the year, Amari Cooper traded away, Jameis Winston about to start, and the Ravens also just being a dominant football team right now. Some may say the best football team playing up there with the Lions and the Chiefs. The Ravens are 8.5-point road favorites in Cleveland against the Browns. Brian, I think we're both on the same page that the Ravens are probably going to demolish this team. So I'll ask you this. Will the Browns cover an 8.5-point spread? I don't think they will.
Yeah, I mean, the Browns at 1-6, now they make the quarterback change because of Deshaun Watson's injury. Jameis Winston coming in there. I don't think I have the stones to pick the Browns at home straight up against this Ravens team. But I think they cover. It was 9. The spread was 9 earlier in the week. So somebody's believing in the Browns out there. Honestly, Chris, Jameis Winston might give them a better chance than the production they were getting out of Deshaun Watson the first 6 games. So I'll say the Browns cover, but I'm not bold enough to pick them straight up even at home. I thought about it, but I'm not going to do it.
I hear you there. I do think that Jameis Winston could do something there with the Browns, but I'm sorry. I think there's you talked about good vibes. There are no good vibes in Cleveland right now. They're feeling a lot of pain. Let's move on to another division rivalry, and it's the Colts at the Texans. The Texans are 5.5-point favorites at home. Jonathan Taylor looks like he's back here. The Texans are another one of those teams that could be, could be the best in the NFL. They're among that conversation in the AFC. I have the Texans winning here, but do the Colts pull off an upset and keep themselves in that AFC South race conversation?
I don't think so. I've got the Texans winning. I think it'll be a close game. I think it'll be a good game. I think the Colts will cover. Last I saw it was +6. So that seems a little bit steep to me. I think it could be back and forth. Colts have some ability to make plays down the field, and Jonathan Taylor looks like he's going to be back. But no, I'm not going to pick against the Texans at home. I think they find a way to get this done. They've been winning close games. They're pulling them out against the Packers. It hasn't always been pretty, but they're one of those teams that's just it seems like they're learning how to win after being a really young team last year.
Bills at Seahawks. Bills are 3-point road favorites in Seattle. The Seahawks have been a tricky team to predict this year. I think you and I have gone back and forth on where they've been this season. But currently they sit atop the NFC West at 4-3.
That's why I said, the Rams should just go try to win their division. It's just a lot of uncertainty there.
There is, and we'll get to another NFC West team that people have been talking about. In fact, it's the NFC West right now is 4-3 Seattle, Cardinals, Rams, San Fran, all 3-4, and the Rams, of course, coming up. Kind of just had their game to get to 3-4 there. So really impressive there. But on the flip side, the Bills have been 5-2. They were a team I thought would fall off this year. I thought that their roster wasn't strong enough to kind of balance things. I thought Josh Allen was going to have to be Superman way too often. But they've got 2 interceptions from DeMar Hamlin. They've got they've added Amari Cooper. Keon Coleman's been pretty solid. Dalton Kincaid's getting worked in. James Cook was worked in when he was healthy. This is a Bills team that's been very impressive and is still very much in conversation to be maybe the best team in the AFC right now. Is this as simple as the Bills are going to walk into town and crush the Seahawks, or do you see Geno Smith working some magic here? I think the Bills do win.
Seahawks are a Jekyll and Hyde team, man. Started off 3-0, then they lose 3. I mean, they crushed the Falcons in Atlanta last week, but 3 weeks ago they lost to the Giants at home. I don't know what to make of them, so I'm just going to take Josh Allen and the Bills, who are on a little bit of a roll. They even got Amari Cooper a score in his first game last week. So I think they go on the road, even that long trip out to Seattle, and win this one by at least a touchdown.
I'm with you
Seahawks will be 500, where they seem destined to be.
Yeah, it seems like that's kind of their vibes this week for sure. Moving right along, this is an interesting game because this is also involving the Steelers' next opponent after the Giants and the bye week, and that's the Washington Commanders, who are 3-point dogs at home to the Chicago Bears. And this is the battle of the rookie quarterbacks, Caleb Williams versus Jaden Daniels. If Jaden Daniels is healthy, that's a note that needs to be made here. But maybe that's why the Commanders aren't favored in this game, because people aren't sure about Jaden Daniels' status. But Brian, I think Jaden Daniels might be able to play in this game. I think they're trying to get him healthy. They're taking every precaution. I'm going to take the Commanders. I think that even if they have to play Marcus Mariota, I think their offensive system will get them some points in this game. I think the Bears, they've had some surprisingly really good showings this year. I thought they would take them a little bit longer. They're 4-2 in a very tough NFC North. The NFC North looking like what the AFC North was supposed to look like, because they're 4-2 and they're in last right now in the NFC North. Meanwhile, the Commanders are 5-2 atop the NFC East. What say you? Are you rolling with Caleb Williams and the Bears, or is Washington going to keep rolling to go to 6-2 and set up a really interesting matchup with the Steelers in 2 weeks?
I'm more worried about that Jaden Daniels injury than you, Chris. I think even if he does play, he's not going to be 100%. Commanders, you look at what they've done. They really ain't played nobody. They really ain't beaten nobody. I mean, they've got their wins are against the Panthers, Browns, Cardinals, Bengals, and Giants. So the Bears were a team. I lost my mind a little bit when we did our preseason predictions for the Post-Gazette. I had them not just making the playoffs. I had them winning the NFC North. I was that much of a believer in Caleb Williams and bearded Matt Eberflus. If they're going to do what I predicted them to do, they better go on the road and win this one against the Commanders team that should be riding high after killing the Panthers last week. But the Bears are better than the Panthers. I will disagree with you and take the Chicago Bears on the road as we speak. Practice squad edition for the Steelers. Wide receiver Andy Isabella.
I was just about to say another short 5'9" receiver added to the Steelers. But this is a guy who was a second-round pick for the Cardinals, of course, in the 2019 draft, and was playing last for the St. Louis Battlehawks. As a team there. But he also played for the Bills last season, the Ravens the season before that. Quickly here before we get back to our pick six.
Coach Mark Whipple.
Oh wow, yeah. How quickly does a move like an Andy Isabella get into the Steelers lineup? He's on the practice squad for now. Is he even a factor after the bye week?
No, I don't know that he's even going to progress above the practice squad. I think he's just a body right now for whatever reason.
There you go. Well, that there you have it. Let's get back to the pick six here.
But good luck to him.
What would you say?
But good luck to Andy Isabella. Prove me wrong.
Certainly. We've gone through 5 games. Let's get to a big game, and that's Sunday Night Football. This is a game that, I mean, you and I were young ones, was one of the games to watch every single year. Steve Young versus Troy Aikman, these type of games. The Cowboys at the Niners. The Niners are 4.5-point home favorites against the Cowboys, and I am intrigued by that spread there. I thought this game would look a lot closer in Vegas. The Cowboys are 3-3. The Niners are 3-4. The Niners are extremely banged up. The Cowboys have plenty of injuries. The Niners are getting favored here. I'm rolling with the Cowboys. I like what they're able to do on their offense more than what I like what San Fran's been able to do. I think their injuries at wide receiver are much more damaging to what the Cowboys are going through. They also have injuries on defense. Give me Dallas rolling into San Fran and getting a dub.
I'm going to pick against you again. I'm going to go with the Niners at home, and I think they cover 4.5. I just feel like this is an opportunity where a battle-tested team like the Niners, who've gone to the Super Bowl in recent years and have good coaching, they just kind of find a way to rebound from everything working against them right now. The Ayuk injury, tough loss at home last week to the Chiefs. I picked them in that one on this show. They let me down, but I'm going to pick them again because the Cowboys, I mean, geez, Jerry Jones just like can't get out of his own way. You know, they were even causing drama and stuff during the bye week, it seemed like. So last time we saw them out there on the grass, they got demolished by the Lions 49-7. I'm going to go with the Niners here. I just feel like when people were doubting them, good teams, good organizations like this find a way to bounce back.
Certainly there. We'll have another Monday show previewing Steelers, Giants, and people will say, "Where's your prediction on that?" Well, we have a whole weekend to get through, and then a Monday show to do. You'll get that on for the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette.
Hey, happy birthday to Pat Fryermuth.
And happy birthday to Pat Fryermuth here from the North Shore Drive podcast. He's Brian Batko. I'm Chris Carter. This is the North Shore Drive podcast. Find this show on your favorite podcasting apps and on YouTube every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday right here, as well as the daily content that comes up from all of our Pittsburgh Post-Gazette sports writers here at the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. Thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you Monday here on the North Shore Drive podcast.
Thank you for tuning in to another episode of the North Shore Drive podcast from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel. For all the sports coverage from the Post-Gazette that we have to offer, visit post-gazette.com.